Gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going over an M16A3, kind of, and I'm pretty excited because it's the M16A3 from Battlefield 3. One of the best, if not the best Battlefield ever made. Let's dive on in.
I want my M16.
Thanks, Doc. I really needed that.
Having fun?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's a dream come true.
Listen, I got some bad news.
Okay.
You've been doing really good. I like your channel.
Appreciate you.
It's good quality, but there is a lot of competition in the gun space right now. So big reason I brought you out here is that I'm gonna have to murder you.
I'm sorry, what?
See that? Lethal. If you want to have something cool like this, you gotta go check out Americana pipe dream apparel. Japanese Hagonakami, Japanese knife. It's really cool. Not only do they have a bunch of cool stuff like that, but they have camouflage, night vision, other accoutrement that'll take your LARP to the next level. And I appreciate those guys very much for helping keep the lights on here at Administrative Results. Go check out Americana pipe dream apparel and give them a hug and a kiss for me. I appreciate it very much. We also give a big thank you to Optics Planet, the optics sponsor of the channel. And I appreciate those guys very much for helping us out here at the channel. And they want to help you out as well. Can't see my sights. Gentlemen, the M16 Beauty Queen, one of the best rifles ever made, widely used by the United States military and other law enforcement agencies, as well as militaries around the world. Now, I have with me a gentleman, a fellow YouTuber, who has built out the Battlefield 3 M16A3/M16A4, depending on how we want to go about it. The M16, there is always a plane.
Always. It's the frog foot.
It's the frog foot buzzing us, dude. That guy's a sweat.
Oh, he's doubling back. Holy
Fast movers inbound.
Fast movers! Now, a real quick brief historical synopsis of the M16 and its different models that we get up to here. So the M16A1, then of course we get the updated M16A2 in the 80s, thanks to the Marine Corps. Then they realized that optics and other lights, lasers, and attachments don't really work that well with the old style handguards. I have an M16A2 that I want to go over in a future video, mainly for the OIF invasion of Iraq vibes. And it is definitely apparent with those early handguards that mounting stuff to it is just suboptimal. So they come out with a better Picatinny system for mounting all these different attachments. And these M16 or the M16A4 definitely was a heavy workhorse for the United States Marine Corps in a lot of battles in the early days of the global war on terror. You think of Fallujah. A lot of guys always talk about, oh, I gotta get my 12.5, or no, the 10.5 is better for CQB. And it's like, meanwhile, the Marines were doing room clearing with 20-inch rifles. I love that about us. Fast forward to now, the M16 has pretty much been phased out by a lot of branches. Marine Corps, whether they're going for HK products or they used to have the M4 products, they then would issue a lot of those M16A4s to more support style troops. Now, the Navy had a model called the M16A3, which would be the full auto variant, as opposed to the M16A4, which would have been the semi and burst. And that's a very fast speed run of it all. So Mr. Espo here of Agent Espo's YouTube channel has a really good video on this gun, and I really enjoyed it, and I wanted to show it off to you guys. Mainly has to do with the Battlefield 3 lore. Now, Battlefield 3 came out in 2011 and was a massive success on the market. It had some good, gritty action, a lot of true violence, and you know the game was good because journalists said it was homophobic. I have a big soft spot for Battlefield 3 in my heart, and a lot of the weapons in there are very goated in the sauce. I think of the inventory of weapons in that game, and they are all weapons that I care about for the most part. Now, Mr. Espo here, what can you tell me about this build? I need you to kind of walk me through what makes the Battlefield 3 M16 a Battlefield 3 M16.
According to IMFDB, what it's based off of is a Colt Sporter competition. So So a civilian kind of AR-15, that's what they're modeling the gun after. So kind of starting up front, I have an A2 muzzle device on it. It's actually an A1 in game. Why they did that, I'm not really sure. I think whatever gun they had, they modeled it after, they just had an A1. And then moving down to the bayonet lug and the sling swivel, those are not present on the version in game. So I just kept them on because I told myself I'm gonna get a bayonet at some point. So like, you might as well, I don't know, keep it on for whatever reason. And then you got the rail. This is a P and S rail. I had a bunch of dick jokes on my channel about P and S. P and S, if you say it really quick, it's like P and S.
Lock it in.
Abdul, get the rocks.
I'm sorry. P&S rail, it's the same thing as a CAC. There's just like weird government contract stuff going on. On the right side of the gun, I got rail covers. So in game, if you don't have a flashlight on, the rail covers just take up the whole right side of the gun and the left side of the gun is without them. I can't mount this light the way they do in game by just gluing it to the, I guess I could if I wanted to. I could JB weld it, but I'm not gonna do that. So I just took that rail off and put the Pentagon light. This is a UX2. Pentagon light doesn't exist anymore because they pretty much got genocided by Surefire. So I think they were like ripping some stuff off and then Surefire came for them and now they don't exist anymore. So apparently they were really good lights. This is an incandescent bulb and I got the light cover on there from Hammy 3D Prints. He's my boy. I'm running a mouse tail, just a pressure switch. I got momentary and constant. That's not in game. In game, they just magically turn on for whatever reason. You're just like using the force to like turn it on, but you can't do that in real life, obviously. So I just threw that on there. And then moving down to the receiver, of course, a flat top. I've had a lot of people tell me the M16A3 was not a flat top, or it was a fixed carry handle, or it was a flat top. I've heard that argument a lot. I've even argued with some guys that are much more knowledgeable in the space about it, but the official M16A3 is basically a full auto A2, and the one that they're using in game is a flat top. Well, there are some real life pictures floating around on Instagram, a guy called 20-inch Barrels. He's got a really cool little Instagram where there shows a bunch of sailors using M16A3 lowers with A4 uppers like this configuration. So my headcanon was that because you're in the Marines, right? So the medic is probably a corpsman. So in my headcanon, I'm like, okay, the corpsman's in the Navy, so maybe that's why he's using a Navy gun. And then of course up top, I got the Trijicon RX01. This is the Amber Triangle 6.5 MOA. The one in Battlefield 3 is actually just a normal red dot, and the 6.5, the triangular amber one, wouldn't be in that game. It would actually be in Battlefield Hardline. And then the lower's marked, it's just an 80% lower. Property of US government, M16A3 556, and then 10/25/2011 for the serial number, which is the day that Battlefield 3 came out in North America. Moving down to the grip, I got a Hogue grip. You gotta have the Magpul assist to really complete that vibe. And then I got a A1 stock on this. In game, it's an A2, but I just got an A1 because that's what came with the upper when I bought it off tax swap.
The A1 stock is rather superior.
I would say so, yeah. A little bit, especially little Mexicans like me, we like that better length of pull.
Huh?
So A1 stock fits good. And then I got that wrapped up just like they have in game. I'm using like some medical tape and I just wrapped that thing. You could use like goon tape or whatever, but I just bought white tape and then I painted over it and then rubber banded it. Knight's foregrip up front. A real popular setup was the Cobra sight with, I want to say it was like the heavy barrel. And then, I don't know, how'd you run yours? You remember?
Dude, it's been many years. I was a teenager for sure, and I was trying to chase girls that didn't like me, and Battlefield 3 was my sweet, sweet mistress.
Your safe space.
My safe space. I think it was definitely a heavy barrel, some sort of red dot combo.
Yeah.
Was the meta. Running around no shark canals, getting PTSD. I have to explain myself. I'm not trying to copy Garantham because he's heavily adopted the cool guy green headband thing. I do this because it is still October and the high is 109 here in Arizona. So I am suffering. This also isn't a cooler. Now, I often think about how often I run the shorter barreled rifles because they're a little bit more fun, a little bit more wieldy, and they are just so much more commonplace within the civilian sector now. 20-inch rifles kind of gone the way of the dodo, but it is a good reminder shooting today just like how comfy they are to shoot, especially with 55 grain. That 55 grain coming out screaming at like 3,300 feet per second, and it is cooking, and it will definitely rock your world and say, hello, I am here to party. Now, I got that ammo from Badlands Munitions, the ammo sponsor of the channel. Excellent local guys here in Arizona. Big thank you to those guys. All right, so the M16 as a firearm itself is what I would call tried and true, but it has become a little bit dated in some senses. It is, of course, still very lethal, if not the most, or one of the most lethal versions of the 5.56 platform. Pretty much how Eugene Stoner himself wanted the gun to be ran in the 20-inch configuration, optimal for that 55 grain ammo. But as the grainage of 5.56 progresses, as threats and combat evolves, things become kind of tried and true. So I was looking at some charts, doing my homework for this video, and I think I came across a chart where it was 14.5-inch barrel versus a 20-inch barrel, and the drop of the bullet with just a 55 grain at 300 yards was pretty nominal. Now, you may think, what about engagements out to further? Well, typically, a lot of guys were saying in another article I was reading is that under the full fatigue and combat load of what a modern soldier would carry, they were pretty much expected to be accurate from 250 to 300 yards. Pushing beyond that, that's where things become tricky, right? You're not working on a static flat range where you have cardboard targets. You're working against bad guys that are gonna move. They're gonna expose very small portions of their silhouette, and hitting those targets out to distance becomes a little bit tricky. Would an M16 be better? Yeah, probably, but it also comes down to, say, a magnification package you would have on that gun. Now, if the drop was nominal, say with a 14.5 to a 20-inch being 5.5 inches, which, you know, that's a lot. So that would definitely be a question to think, like, okay, is the extra weight and cumbersomeness of the gun worth that much extra barrel length? And that's definitely a question I think they answered, seeing how commonplace 14.5-inch rifles are amongst the Army, Marine Corps, and other branches. I know that sometimes they even go shorter, right? High-speed cool guys have been the detriment to the civilian marketplace in a sense where their influence is so massive that everyone wants short-barreled rifles. Now, being out in Arizona, I always talk about how much line of sight we have, how long the distance and terrain goes for. And longer guns, to me, out here make more sense. But of course, we're out in the desert, away from civilization. And things in fighting and conflict, anything that can happen probably will happen. Things are crazy in those kind of conflicts. I think of the Russian rifle, the AK-74, that's a 16-point-something-inch barrel, right? And if we go back and rewind the clock and we look at the United States versus the Russians during the Cold War, when they were expecting a bunch of Ruskies to come through the Eastern Front and invade Western society, it would have been a bunch of AK-74s versus a bunch of M16A2s. Like, it's pretty much an armor reforger scenario. And it's an interesting little thought process, and I know I'm kind of like giving a lot of yapping at you, and you're probably wondering why. Well, it's stuff that I think about, right? It's like the common thing as a gun guy, you're like, all right, well, you know, truly, do I really just need a 20-inch rifle, or do I just need a 16-inch rifle, or should I go with the 14.5-inch rifle? Or reality, would I get 11.5 or a 10.3? And the reality of the whole situation is that life is not a Call of Duty mission where you get to change out your weapons on the fly. If we're looking at the ultimate worst case, Axis power of the HOA invades your neighborhood, you do not get to run out there and say, oh, hold on, guys, I gotta change my loadout. What you really get into a conflict with is what you're gonna have. And I know that there's, for a fact, a lot of guys that use the M16 even after it was kind of phased out in some aspects. You know, say volunteer fighters when they were fighting ISIS, Peshmerga guys using the M16. It is an effective rifle for a reason. Now, because it's a longer rifle, people may think, well, what if we put a better optics package on it and maybe we could use it as more of a DMR? Well, an issue comes in is that I don't think it'll be optimized for that DMR role as opposed to other guns that have the purpose from the ground up build, say like a Mark 12 platform, where they were built around the idea of accuracy.
I hit that guy right in the fucking head.
Now, if you do have an accurized M16, and off the top of my head, how to get that done, I don't know, do you?
Free float in the barrel maybe is one part.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So off the top of my head, if we were to accurize an M16, give it the better setup, maybe a free float rail, better optics package, throw some 77 grains in there, then maybe we're talking a little bit more of an accurate rifle. And it could be a bit more cost effective in theory, right?
All ammo is duty ammo with the M16.
Amen, brother, yeah. Amen.
20-inch barrel.
Say it for the people in the back. And that is a nice thing. If you live in a society,
We live in a society, truly,
that is heavily dominated by the AR-15s, such as the United States. There are millions and millions of them in circulation here.
The AR-15 also has an enthusiastic following on YouTube.
So this is Sprinkle. I named her Sprinkles because she loved sprinkling casings all over the ground.
5.56 is in abundance, and pretty much anything you put into an M16 is just gonna come out of it screaming and hauling, and that round is gonna yee and yaw and cause a massive wound cavity, and it is extremely effective at what it does. There are plenty of people that have been put into an early grave thanks to the M16 platform. If you are someone that all you have is an M16, well, you better figure out how to get the job done with that M16. If you're gonna be stuck into room clearing, doing close fighting, you're probably gonna die regardless because it's not like some CQB footwork that you're probably gonna be doing.
but it can be done.
It can be absolutely done. I mean, you remember seeing the footage of those guys in Fallujah doing the house clearing, and the guys are like right below them in the story. It's wild stuff to see that, but they're all running 20-inch rifles, man. They're getting it done.
You see a lot of Marines throwing that stock up on their shoulder and then just kind of holding on to the front grip and doing that kind of thing when you're inside of a house and whatnot.
The recoil is so nominal that you wouldn't really, that's not gonna be like a wild shoot. Like, you're pretty much gonna be point shooting from that close anyways. They're on me like flies on shit over here! They're taking objective Charlie! Why am I yelling? You're right next to me! I don't know! Now coming back to the pop culture significance of this particular build done by Mr. Espo here, my diversity hire Latinx friend. So coming back to this gun, right? 2011, Marines are still using the M16A4, so it makes sense that the gun would pop up in that game, along with another litany of weapons. Now, Battlefield 3, I would say, is one of those games that had a massive effect on the pop culture. Even if you look at a guy like Espo here who does a lot of video game clones, clearly video games have an effect on the pop culture zeitgeist. I myself wouldn't claim to be someone that would build guns out because of video games, but I do know of guys that do, like you or Reno, and I'm probably spacing on other guys, but it's a common factor of gun culture and society is that when we have a niche like ourselves in gun culture, guys like to do hobby builds or cool builds that may intersect with practicality, such as this one, and I think that's fun. I think pop culture does play a massive part in the gun culture zeitgeist because you have young guys like us. When we were young, Battlefield 3 was the cat's pajamas, you know? While dudes were out there getting traumatized IRL in the global war on terror, I was tearing it up and getting traumatized in No Shar Canal.
Right.
870 slugs in a recon class, just absolutely devastating the other team.
Operation Metro all day.
Operation Metro, how God intended Battlefield to be played. These guys eventually grow up, they get adult money, and they want to build these cool things out, and it all kind of started from the inceptioning of those video games that they played with as a young kid. Now, there was always that talk back in the day that video games are going to make you more violent. They're going to make you crazy.
True.
Could there be some truth to it? Nah, there's always a grain of truth in everything. I don't agree totally. I think if anything, it just makes you obsessed with the cool toys and gadgets that were inside of that franchise's pop culture mediascape. And it's fun as you grow up and become an adult, you get adult money, it's fun to kind of live out and capture a part of your childhood. As a 13-year-old, you're not getting an M16 like this. It's just not happening unless you have really cool parents.
What sort of gun is that he's carrying?
M16.
If you do, tell them thank you and I congratulate them.
Or the feds give it to you.
Or the, but it's a cool thing to see. And ultimately, a gun like this has a really cool cultural impact, really cool reality behind it with how heavily it was used in the global war on terror. A lot of guys and friends I have, guys I've even had on the channel say, like guys like Zach, who was in the Marines, he was in Garmsur, Afghanistan. They were all running M16 A4s, putting in work and fighting the good fight. So it is a big cultural significance, and I think it's really cool, and I appreciate Mr. Espo here bringing it on the channel, coming across the country and showing it off to you guys. Bobby, where can they find you at, man?
Agent Espo on YouTube, Instagram, that's pretty much it. So I always thought of this as like my blood diamond, so to speak, like you taking it from your channel where it's like you have that, what do you call it, like the big chimp mind you couldn't get out of your mind or whatever.
Right. You have the inception, you've been inceptioned, yeah.
That was this gun for me where I was like, that is the rifle I want to build, because they're like, I think one guy, like an airsoft guy did it before, level cap.
His channel got really popular with airsoft stuff for a bit, and I remember seeing this when I was younger, when I was really into airsoft, and I thought, wow, that level cap guy's the cat's pajamas, dude.
I saw that like 13 years ago, and I was like, dude, someday I'm doing it, and here it is, so.
Time flies when you're having fun. Don't worry, youngins, you'll get old one day. Gentlemen, I got nothing else for you. I appreciate you stopping by, checking out this cool gun done by Mr. Espo over here, and we're gonna go cool off. Godspeed, I'll catch you on the flip.
They're taking him!
I mean, I'm impressed that I hit it whatsoever like that. I got like 2 out of 6.
More ammo, senor?
More ammo?